Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of Season 11 of the Dark Money Files, in which we shine a light into a murky world. I am Ray Blake, and with me is my co-host, friend and business partner Graham Barrow. Hello Graham.
Hello Ray.
Graham, some of our most popular episodes have been about the underlying psychology, motives and methods used by criminal networks, and it's a theme we're returning to today, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Ray. It's a subject we also love talking about. And we've done a few presentations recently about exactly that.
We have. But before we do that, and rather appropriately, it's time to mention the new sponsor of the podcast.
Well, yeah, it's exciting. It's a new sponsor, but not a company that's new to us, Ray.
Well, no, exactly. We're delighted to tell you that the podcast is now brought to you in association with Risk Alert 247 Limited.
And I think we should have full disclosure here. Both Ray and I are shareholders in Risk Alert 247.
Because we both believe that it's a company that's going to make a difference.
Yes, we do. And Ray, why are we so excited about it?
Well, because, to the best of our knowledge, it's the first company ever to provide accurate risk ratings in real time on newly formed companies without requiring any personally identifiable information in order to do so.
It's quite a claim, Ray.
Well, it is, Graham, but we also know we've got the evidence to support those claims.
Yes, so if anyone needs accurate real-time risk assessments of their corporate clients without having to disclose any of their personally identifiable information, get in touch with us.
Yeah, not only clients, also prospective clients, suppliers, etc., etc. But exactly. We should make clear it's only for UK entities right now.
Well, the UK at the moment, but hopefully I'm going to sound like Pinky in the Brain here, right? Tomorrow we will rule the world. Well, maybe tomorrow, some more countries will follow. But if you want to find out more, get in touch with either Ray or me through LinkedIn or via the form on the website at riskalert247.com.
Exactly. So, let's return to our theme for the day. It's one of those things that sounds simple, but isn't. But the fact is that the effectiveness of all risk systems and controls ultimately depends on the human beings responsible for writing, administering and reviewing them.
Yes, which brings in those psychology, motives and methods that we talked about earlier. And as we said earlier, they also apply to the criminals.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we're talking about organised crime groups rather than some lone person committing a spontaneous criminal act, right?
Well, exactly right. It's quite hard to protect a firm from those one-off spontaneous acts. But in all honesty, it isn't that much of a threat, as the sums of those one-off spontaneous acts tend to be quite small.
But on the other hand, serious and organised criminal groups, by their very nature, represent a much more significant threat and do need to be guarded against.
Yeah, and as we know, they also tend to use legal entities as part of the mechanism for laundering their ill-gotten gains.
We should start by talking about why that is, Graham.
Well, yeah, in fact, maybe we should go back one stage further and provide for our dear listeners a definition of what we mean by an organised crime group, or I think from here on in we'll talk about OCGs.
Now, to be clear, this isn't our definition, it's the one given in the United Nations Convention Against Organised Crime, which was issued in 2000. It defines it as a group of 3 or more persons existing over a period of time, acting in concert with the aim of committing crimes for financial or material benefit.
So 2's company, but 3's a group.
Well, apparently so, yeah.
But that is a helpful definition, and it's been adopted almost universally in nation states' legislation and risk assessments and strategies when dealing with the consequences of this type of criminal activity.
Yeah. Now, here in the UK, the National Crime Agency estimates that at least 59,000 people are part of at least 7,500 OCGs at a cost to the economy of more than £47 billion a year. Now, that's enough, as they say, to build 450 new hospitals or provide 730,000 affordable homes. As long as they aren't in London, obviously.
That's an important caveat.
Yeah.
But it is also an awful lot of money.
Well, exactly. And you can't spend it all in cash. In fact, you can't generate that much in cash.
No, so you need to clean it up. And trying to put that much money through individual personal bank accounts is really quite tricky.
Whereas businesses, by their very nature, process huge sums of money every day.
Yeah, so making your drug money or online scam money or the proceeds of selling fake goods or whatever you're doing to generate it, making that money look legitimate is best achieved through making it look like respectable business earnings.
And what's more, you can create companies without necessarily identifying the controlling hands behind it, which provides additional motivation to use them as part of the laundering process.
Okay, so having set the scene, why does the UK have, and I think everyone would agree with this, quite such a big problem with dodgy companies?
Well, we provide almost the perfect environment for them to thrive, Graham. They're cheap. Even though the cost has just risen from 12 quid to 50 quid, it's unlikely to put off determined OCGs.
Yeah, no. And at the moment, there is no verification required for any of the information you give.
And finally, you can do the whole process online in around 15 to 20 minutes. It's quick, it's cheap, no additional paperwork is required.
You can see the attraction, can't you?
Oh, you absolutely can. And yet, they aren't all that clever at hiding their tracks, are they?
Well, to be honest, Ray, they've never had to be, because as far as I can see, no one's ever really bothered looking before.
Until we did, comparatively recently.
Exactly.
And it turns out they're either very stupid, very lazy, or a combination of the two, because mostly there are easy to spot clues when you go looking for them.
Which we can talk about in a minute, but first we ought to explain why criminals tend to incorporate such a lot of companies.
Yeah, and there are a number of reasons. Firstly, it's an eggs and baskets issue. Even though there are significant risks in being criminals, it doesn't mean that criminals are prepared to take any risk in any situation.
Yeah, like using just one company to launder all of your criminal funds through.
Exactly. That's way too risky in every way.
Yeah, and having lots of companies means you don't have to put too much money through any one of them, reducing the transaction monitoring risks, as well as the possibility of losing a great chunk of your criminal profits if the money does get frozen.
Yeah, so OCGs need lots of companies for much the same reason that they need more than just one money mule.
Exactly, and that's a really good point. And of course, needing lots of companies is where the errors can creep in, because they need to be formed quite quickly.
Before we talk about the errors, we should talk about what you need in order to set up a company.
Okay, so some of those things are pretty obvious, like a company name and an address and the name of at least one officer who will be legally responsible for the company. You need their occupation. At
least one shareholder, a declared level of capital, and an industry classification code, or SIC, SIC, which says what type of business the company has been set up to do.
Yeah, and in fact you can have up to 4 of those if the company is something of a conglomerate or undertakes a variety of different business lines.
Yeah, okay, so that's all. Not much that can go wrong there, you'd think.
And yet you'd be wrong.
About things not going wrong?
That wasn't my finest piece of communication, was it? But hopefully you get my meaning.
Yeah, of course I do. One of those situations where two wrongs don't actually make a right. It ought to be a simple process to name a company, though, shouldn't it?
Well, it is a simple process, Ray. It's naming it effectively that seems to be a tad more difficult.
So when we started the podcast and called it The Dark Money Files, it wasn't difficult to come up with the same name for our company.
Well, I agree. And when Mr. Marks and Mr. Spencer decided to start a shop, they found it just as easy to name it.
And the people who decided everything in their shop would cost £1 probably didn't agonise for long over calling it Poundland.
No, and yet, when we look at the companies created on the day we recorded this episode, which for historical records was the 24th of May 2024.
That's going to be important to some future archivist, Graham.
It really, really is, because I bet someone's going to fact check us now.
Yeah.
We find some really weird examples of company names. Like, for example, Torpy McDB Limited, TORPI, space MCDB, which was registered to an address in Northern Ireland.
It's got a certain ring to it, hasn't it?
Well, I agree, and it's got a bit more of a ring than two others that were registered to that same address on the same day.
And what were they?
They were Taikajin Limited and Ryub Mabuk Limited.
At which point it moves from silly to a bit suspicious.
Well, it does, because actually they all have the same SIC code, 47910, which is the sale of goods by mail order or the internet.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they do. And oddly, all three of them describe their occupations as being general managers.
Okay.
And those weird company names, believe it or not, mainly consist of bits of their names, but cut around and cut up and pasted back together in a rather random fashion.
As if it were all done by some sort of computer algorithm.
Well, it's exactly like that, Ray, yeah.
Okay. So I think what we're saying, if I can put this together, is that one outlier, like a weird name, is unusual, but it's not necessarily suspicious. But then two or three or more weird artefacts on a single record constitute mounting evidence of criminals acting in a coordinated fashion.
Exactly. So let's just pick up on one of those, on occupations. So, for example, since the 1st of January 2024, as I've checked, 3 cabinet ministers living in the UK have started companies.
Well, I'm sure they have, obviously preparing for the inevitable, Graham. But which particular cabinet ministers?
You won't have heard of any of them, Ray.
Oh, I'm sure I will, Graham. I mean, there aren't that many cabinet ministers in the UK.
Okay, if you want to have a go, one of them is called Guo Tai Yao.
Okay, now, he's not in the cabinet, Graham.
Well, it says he is, right?
Okay.
Says on his registration. Mind you, he has registered 20 other companies since the beginning of March this year, in which he has variously described himself as an auditor, an accountant, a barber, a building contractor, and an administrator. So he's either very, very versatile or he's fibbing.
I'm just trying to work out if that name is an anagram of any cabinet ministers I do know. It doesn't seem to be. So those 21 companies, were they all registered to the same address, Graham?
No, Ray, they weren't. Oh. Although some were registered on the same day to different houses in the same street.
Wow.
And oddly, it was the same day that Shui Shengxi registered 3 more companies to 3 other houses in the same street as 3 of Guo Tai Yao's, and all 6 of them had nonsense names.
Yeah, none of them an anagram of Michael Gove. All right, point made. Let's move on to statements of capital. That should be fairly uncontentious, you'd have thought.
Well, you would, Ray, but as anyone who follows my LinkedIn profile will know, a company was registered very recently with a declared capital of £90 trillion.
Which is mad, obviously, but rather obvious. It sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, more interesting are those that try and look right by choosing a very specific amount of capital, not knowing that the overwhelming majority of legitimate businesses choose something very obvious, like £1 or £10 or £100.
Yes. Any specific examples spring to mind?
Earlier this year we had swathes of companies, didn't we, incorporating with £60,000 of capital. They were all using the SIC code for real estate. They were all asserting to be run by Spanish nationals, and they were all registering in the same road or roads.
And that's the thing again, isn't it, Ray? So often it's the one thing which is noticeable, but it leads you to other commonalities. We should talk about the why now, I think.
Oh, psychology, Graham, isn't it?
Explain.
Well, these are OCGs, Graham. They're not CSPs.
So, for those who don't know, corporate service providers, that second abbreviation.
Yeah, indeed. So one thing that unites OCGs and CSPs is that both of them create a large number of companies on the register. The reason they do so is different, theoretically. OCGs are in it for the money. The companies are a means to make that money. And unlike corporate service providers, they're not doing this on behalf of an entrepreneur who wants to create a company that will come to be publicly known and lauded, and has perhaps spent days thinking about the most memorable and resonant name. For the OCG, these companies are simply a means to an end, and not an end in itself. In fact, the last thing they want is for these companies to become publicly known or memorable. But these people rarely have patience, so they want to create these companies quickly and easily without too much thought or effort required, because they've got bigger things to be planning.
Yeah, so for example, they might create a simple computer algorithm to generate their company names for them.
Yeah, or work from a manual template, only changing enough information to create a new company in a different location. I mean, personally, though, I think we'd consider this a 5-minute job in Excel or Python to set up a system to quickly generate the data we could then just cut and paste into the company's house forms on an industrial scale. But there are very simple time-saving tricks, even if you have to do it manually.
Yeah, so just change the house number but not the entire street name.
Or, when choosing your occupation, pick the first occupation that appears in a drop-down list, or at least the first section, so you don't have to keep scrolling through.
What do you mean, like accountant, administrator, auditor?
Exactly. Or keep using the same group of SIC codes.
Yeah, in the case of one group of companies we saw, the first SIC code they chose was 01460, and then they just changed the first two digits, selecting 24460 and 46460 as the second and third categories.
Which resulted in a host of suspicious companies, all of which were allegedly involved in the raising of swine or pigs, the processing of nuclear fuel, and pharmaceutical wholesaling.
Which is funny, not funny, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely not funny for all the people whose companies were cloned by that group and who suddenly found piles of post arriving at their addresses for a company that looked like theirs but was subtly different.
Which is oddly another one of those clues. One of the companies in that group was called CKL Mage Roulettes Limited, where an L had been substituted for the I in the original company. Something, of course, you could do with a computer algorithm.
Okay,
yeah.
So it was CK Image Rights Limited, and then if you swap all of the I's for L's, you get something which isn't easily pronounceable, but kind of could easily be mistaken for the real thing. So that particular one was the company, I think, set up by Chloe Kelly, who went on to score the winning goal in the Women's European Cup final, and whose image subsequently became rather valuable.
Yeah, and I noticed checking as we were coming to record that company has since changed its name from CK Image Rights Limited to Iltal Limited, which is a bit of an odd name, but I suspect that may well be connected to this cloning attempt.
I think so. Okay, so let's do a bit of summing up. OCGs will want to register lots of companies in order to facilitate laundering the proceeds of their crimes.
But they are unlikely to lavish the same effort on company and corporations as they do on robbing, scamming, stealing, trafficking, or any other activity that gives them the maximum possible reward.
And that means they're likely to leave behind clues as to the organised nature of their company and corporations, even though they don't want you to know they're linked.
But in order to see the links, you have to look at more than one company. Otherwise, it is impossible.
And we've just given you a whole host of places to start looking if you're so inclined.
Yeah, and if you're not, come and talk to us because we can do it for you.
So, Graham, what's next?
So, Ray, we've kind of talked about getting these companies and the fact they need them to launder money, but we haven't really gone into much depth about all of the different uses they can be put to and are put to and how they're put to it. So maybe we should do an episode on that.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.